Hello everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Games Up podcast. My name is Cameron and it's just me this week. It would be the both of us, myself and Lewis, but Lewis is actually feeling a little under the weather right now. So if you have him on any kind of social channel or you want to drop him a comment through us, wish him your best, he could do with your well wishes, and we'll get on with the show in his absence. Let's start, as we do every week, with the news. Usually we'd start with an indie game of the week at this point, but because Lewis isn't here, and Lewis really is our kind of indie consultant, if you like, we'll jump straight into the news. The news starts like this. PSX has happened, and it kind of still is at the time of recording, although don't be expecting anything huge out of it. The PlayStation showcase that took part did not reveal anything except a couple of remasters that really aren't that huge, and was mostly made out of the same footage shown at Paris Games Week. We were kind of expecting this, to be honest. The Paris Games Week was their big attempt to try and blow Xbox out of the water in the week that the Xbox One X was releasing. There were some fairly heavy rumours that the stuff that was going to be shown at PSX was moved forward. We kind of weren't expecting anything too big out of this, so nothing shocking or surprising. Bit of a shame that there wasn't a bigger blowout to end the year on, but we had a pretty good week nonetheless. Number 2 in news, the Game Awards happened. Major winners on the night were Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, Cuphead, and Zelda Breath of the Wild, each taking home 3 awards, and Zelda taking home Game of the Year. Surprisingly, the second biggest winner of the night was Overwatch, which took home 2 awards behind both of those, and every other game behind that either took home 2 awards or 1 award, respectively. Massive props to Jeff Keighley, who has put in so much work over the last couple of years to try and really get a top-of-the-line, refined gaming awards show put together, the equivalent of the Oscars in the games industry, and he really is pushing towards it. As he says, there's still a bit of work to go and a bit of refining here and there, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and the Games Awards are certainly getting better and better every year. So if you haven't watched them already, I'd recommend giving them a look. There was some really interesting stuff happen on the night. There were some cool reveals happen on the night. There was a 10-minute Hideo Kojima short film, which has kind of divided people a bit, that happened on the night. And generally, it was a lovely night for people who love video games. Go watch it. Number 3, it finally happened. GTA is getting jetpacks in a GTA Online DLC, which will supposedly release this week on the 12th and revolve around a doomsday scenario. As said, the DLC comes out on the 12th, which for Xbox players is the same day as PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and a lot of sources are pointing towards it being heavily based on the Chiliad mystery, which surfaced when the game first came out when people went to the top of Mount Chiliad. We've talked about this before in a previous episode, which I will link in the description below. There is lots of reasons to believe that this content did not start out as a piece of multiplayer content, but instead was maybe one of the original planned DLCs for the game, which never came to fruition for various reasons. One way or another, though, we are getting this DLC and a look into the Chiliad mystery, which a lot of people have been wanting a payoff for. So kudos to you, Rockstar. Just a shame it's happening online. It'd be nice to see if it has some kind of impact on single player. Number 4, it finally happened. A new Portal game was announced. Kind of. A Bridge Constructor spin-off with Portal was announced this week for the Game Awards. It's hardly the next Portal game that anyone was really hoping for, but it is the first time in a while that Valve has licensed out one of their more major IPs for a game, so maybe they're testing the waters for further licensing in the future? Or maybe they're just testing the waters for if people still want this kind of IP. Either way, it could well be a really good step towards us seeing more Valve IP in the future, or it might just be a little aside. But it's Portal, so it's still pretty cool. And the final piece of news this week is at the time of recording, the UK has been gripped by centimetres of snow, which for us is like world-ending. Like everything stops. Shops shut down, transport stops existing, people run out into the streets. It's pandemonium. There's no schools, there's no nothing. It's chaos. Absolute chaos. But it does mean days off. Now by the time you're listening to this, a lot of the snow is probably gone or turned into that nasty kind of grey, browny, sleety, slushy stuff. So maybe you want to use your newly found gaming time to relive the joys of snow days past. If you did, here is 5 of the best times it snowed in video games. Okay, it seems like a bit of a cop-out to have one entry be 2 games, but anyone who has played these games knows exactly why the winter levels in them were equal parts the best things and the worst things. Everything from the adorable little characters that adorned their winter wonderland settings to the ice. Slippery, slippery ice that made platforming utterly impossible. Both the best and the worst. Number 4, GTA. Lots and lots of GTA games have had snowy areas or levels, but the one that comes to mind for me is GTA 5's annual covering of snow that turns Los Santos from a metropolitan hustle and bustle to a winter wonderland hustle and bustle. If you want something even cooler though, the snow level at the start of GTA 5, which is set in Canada, is particularly festive, and if you search in the ice for long enough you might find a small surprise, maybe that relates to the DLC that comes out this week, if it is, in fact, Chiliad Mystery related. Number 3, James Bond. Some of the best moments in Bond history in his movies have taken place in the snow, and the same can absolutely be said for Bond video games. From GoldenEye on the N64 and Tomorrow Never Dies on the PS1 to Agent Under Fire and Everything or Nothing, lots of Bond games have had great or memorable snow levels, and some have even had both. Number 2, any SSX game. Generation over generation, some of the best arcade sports games are SSX games. They are always incredibly fun to pick up and yet super hard to master, and their snow is always by necessity on point. In the last SSX game that released, which is available on backwards compatibility, by the way, on your Xbox One if you want to play this right now on your snow day, the way you play helps to shape the routes that you snowboard. A really smart approach to a sports game, and something that helps to make it feel a little more unique every time you play. And finally, unpopular as it might be among gaming circles right now, the best snow in any game ever, fight me, is EA's Star Wars Battlefront's Hoth. The team behind the game took so much time to craft the look of Hoth and the feel of the planet, and the incredible engine they built the game on really, really helps. By using props and stills from the original film, they managed to perfectly recreate the feeling of those snowy, frozen plains from Empire Strikes Back, and it is genuinely mouth-dropping the first time that you play it. It's not the best game in the world, it's far from the deepest game in the world, and I guess there's Star Wars Battlefront 2 that came out, but nothing will ever make me think, I can't believe this looks that good, than Hoth did the first time I played Star Wars Battlefront. It's unpopular, but it is true. That, ladies and gentlemen, is our slightly shorter episode this week of Games Up Podcast. If you like what you heard here, there's 2 things we'd love you to do for us. Firstly, like the show on Facebook or follow us on Twitter or any social channel, whichever you prefer. We're on all of them at GamesUpcast, and it will help you keep up to date with everything we post and join in discussions we have or behind-the-scenes photos or all that kind of jazz. And secondly, like and subscribe to the show on YouTube. It helps us get out in front of a few more people, and it'll make sure that you never miss anything that we post, especially as we get closer to Game of the Year time. The show comes out every Monday, 6:30 p.m. on YouTube, and much, much, much earlier that day on iTunes, so you can catch it on your way to work or school or on your way to nothing if you're snowed in on a Monday. Thanks very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, as always, and we'll see you next week, hopefully with a fully recovered Lewis. But until then, enjoy the snow, or whatever the weather, wherever you live, and the game's up.